Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in. It's Wednesday, the 11th of September. So, as folk in the States call it, 9/11. It's about quarter to one in the afternoon UK time. Um, Obviously, it's Susan here. You know who I am, or you wouldn't have tuned in. Well, maybe you would have done. Anyway, this is one that's been going on in my head for a while now. And I know it's going to be controversial, and I'm sorry about that. And I hope it doesn't upset anybody. It's just my thoughts, and I'm always keen to hear what other folk have to say. Um, so bear with me. There's no offence meant here, but it's about what we're calling across the Western world at the moment illegal immigration. And obviously, there's a big hoo-ha about it in the States. It's a big talking point about in the American election at the moment, especially about the wall that Kamala wanted torn down, and now she wants it put back because it's a good idea, but she was against it because it was Trump's idea, and so it goes on. And we have reports, whether they're right or wrong, of gangs of getting together, um, especially in America, but I know it happens in this country, or there are reports of it happening in this country. Whether it does or not is another matter because you don't know what you can believe from the media. Gangs of people from other country getting together and creating havoc. Um, and a part of that havoc, a report I saw in the States, was that people were coming from Haiti, I think it was, and helping themselves to whatever animal food there was about. And the suggestion is it was pet cats and all sorts. As I say, I don't know whether to believe these or not, and I'm not suggesting you believe it. I heard a brilliant one from Penny Kelly last night, and she says if you have to ask somebody else what the truth is, it's not your truth. So we each have our own truth, and we should stick to that. But my ponderings for the moment is that because I saw a post that was saying that Germany are closing their borders to immigrants, but what is that? And this UK is now going to be or the report is going to be charging people £10, tourists £10 to come here. £10, it's nothing, but it's a token, it's a gesture, it's something else to get folk annoyed about. Anyway, the point being, it used to be that folk travelled, and if you read your passport, it gives you free travel. So the passport point, if I'm right in my remembering, and who's to say I am? Somebody can look it up. Maybe I should have looked it up in advance. Passports only came into being after World War One. So prior to that, people travelled the world. My grandmother was born in 1890, I think. Um, Towards the end of the 19th century, she was in service. So that meant she was, a housemaid. She was head housemaid to a family in Ireland, and she travelled with them to the south of France to spend the winters in big house in the south of France. She used to pick grapes from outside the window, and she never had a passport, and all that time. So is it just down to control again? And should we be advocating this level of control? But more importantly, when people go to a different country, a different area, a different state, or somebody else's house, you should behave in a way that's acceptable to that person's house, to that country, to that state. You should not be thinking of taking your own way of living and changing theirs. And that's where I'm coming from. Um, so the only reason that people are illegal immigrants is because they're coming into a country without a passport. And they're only doing that because life is made reasonable for them in that country. If, when we move to another country, whether it be, I mean, I have a daughter that lived in China for 6 years, and then she lived in Mexico for 2 years. She got a job before she went to these countries. She was self-sufficient. Um, so the problem comes when folk have an expectation when they move to take their own traditions and their own way of life with them rather than blend in with what they've got. So I'm saying that passports are just another method of control and knowing where people are. If people were more reasonable and before they moved to another country, they had somewhere to stay. And if they were staying for a long time, they had a means of supporting themselves, whether it was a job that they'd arranged in that country or whether they had enough money um, to be able to live in that country, whatever it happens to be. But to just move into another country and expect that country to fund our stay and take care of us, that's where we're going wrong. And also to change the country's laws to suit them because their laws are different. So if folk were more reasonable and basically the other thing that gets me, you see, is that the Western world, in particular the UK and Christianity, took themselves off to various countries, regardless as to what the culture was there, and decided to change it. They would rule it. They would bring their own religion, their own diseases, to be quite frank, and they would sort everybody. And they would make them all Christians, and they would make them all like the Brits. And now, so we have done wrong back then and are now suffering in many ways for it now. But we're criticising the people who are doing a similar type of thing. We went over there and taught them English. We took over their lands. Because we were the aggressors, and now we've got people from other countries coming in here expecting our laws to change, expecting to be housed and to be given food and so on. So we're back again to the only problem being is the level of expectation. People are not willing to look after themselves, and they expect somebody else to look after them for them, whether it be somebody's house that they've temporarily moved into. And at one point, I had a guest. I had a number of guests that particular weekend, and this particular person um, walked in quite late before an event was starting and demanded that I make them an omelette for the breakfast, and then wondered why I got upset. Then created havoc in my house, and so there was a level of expectation. They were a guest; they weren't paying me for anything. I wasn't doing B&B or anything like that. And I got quite annoyed. I was quite willing to do things, but it's a level of expectation people have. We need to start looking after ourselves, treating other people with respect, whether we go to another country, when in Rome, do as the Romans say, as the saying goes, so that we can be welcome in these countries, respected in these countries, um, and cut back on the level of aggression and expectation to be looked after. As I say, that's probably going to upset a lot of people, and I don't mean to upset anybody. I'm just throwing my thoughts out there. So, um, yeah, it's not that I don't want to welcome people and be kind to them, but they shouldn't expect it. There's a give and take, and it has to be a balance. It can't all be in the one direction. So, yeah, that's my thoughts for today, as it were. Oh, by the way, welcome to all my new subscribers. It's amazing the number of views the last one got. Maybe I should head them all turnip. Um, Maybe that was what attracted people. I don't know if I could think up an interesting title. I'll tell you one thing I should do is to keep the time down. I'm heading for the 10 minutes, and I really prefer to keep them about 6 or 7. So I'm going to close down just now. Thank you all for tuning in. If you think this is worthy of debate, feel free to share it. And I always like to read the comments underneath. That's brilliant. Not that I get very many, and that makes it easy to read, to be honest. Oh, I have to stop because we're going over the 10 minutes. So, yet again, go out there, fear nothing, live your life, love, but most of all, be happy. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.